Jacob Hall with the Iowa Standard, here today with Congressman Steve King. Congressman King just wrapped up a town hall here in Sioux City at the Ho-Chunk Center. How'd you feel it went?
I thought it went really good, Jacob. You walk into a town hall meeting and you never know if there are people that have ginned up pushback, that maybe bring some signs in and want to protest and disrupt the town hall. None of that happened here in Sioux City. I mean, right in the heart of Sioux City at the Ho-Chunk Center, and thanks to the Winnebagos for letting us have this room with this beautiful scenery out here looking across the landscape. But there wasn't really any pushback from anywhere. It was mostly people that just want the country to function right. They want the rule of law. They want an opportunity to live their lives and succeed and make a living. And so I think if you watched all the things that went on here and heard what was said, not only out of me, but especially from the people that asked questions and made comments, you'd understand that this was a really good town hall meeting, and I'm glad we came up here to do it.
Yeah. It's kind of surprising when you can get these meetings in without a whole lot of uproar if you just go off of what the mainstream media tells people think about Steve King.
Truthfully, I had a fella, I don't know his name, I don't remember seeing him before, but as he walked out of this meeting, he stopped me and he said, I want to tell you that I have changed my opinion on you. You are not the person that's characterized in the media, and I will support you and I will vote for you. And I thought I was really gratified by that you don't get that very often from anybody. But he saw that here's something about public speaking eventually exposes your soul. And that's why I just want to stand up and tell the truth. I'm not concerned about what that looks to other people. I want them to see my soul. And I think that that might be what he's referencing. But those things do happen, but they aren't that regular. Most people walk out the door thinking what he said. Mm-hmm. I hope that's true.
Yeah. I want to ask you a little bit about your thoughts on what happened in Virginia and with the Second Amendment, and give you an opportunity to kind of stand up for people's rights.
Well, first, as a preliminary, this was last Monday when they met the Second Amendment rally that brought thousands of people into Virginia to defend their Second Amendment rights. I'm watching what's coming down on the internet. They arrested 3 people that they said they are, I bet I would not try to label them, but they fit the category that caused the left to be concerned. And they may be bad guys, I don't know, but what I read was their violation was, what concerned them was, they had taken the parts and built an AR-15 out of parts, and they had several thousand rounds of ammunition. Somehow when I read that, I just couldn't get very concerned when I look around my family, my neighborhood, my church, and I think, who hasn't done that? It's to some degree or another. An AR-15 is a modern-day musket. And so that wouldn't be a reason to lock anybody up, in my opinion, especially when you have a specific constitutional right. But I was happy to see that of all the people that came in Virginia, it was peaceful. There was no pushing, shoving, no demonstration really, except in favor of our Constitution and our Second Amendment rights. And we should remember that with Charlotte, it might have been like that. We'll never know, because there were people that came to start the confrontation. And this didn't have that element to it. It was Second Amendment people, rule of law. And it reminded me of a Tea Party gathering. We did so many Tea Party gatherings, and we saw the same flags, the Gadsden flags up there, the yellow snake, don't tread on me. A lot of those were there in Virginia also. And that's very similar to what the Tea Party events were. And I know that at one time we had 40 to 60,000 people at the Capitol protesting against Obamacare. And when they left, that lawn was full of people. It was standing room only. It was jammed. And I walked out across that grass looking for a piece of paper or a cigarette butt. There was zero litter there. They picked up everything. I'm going to guess that was the same way with the Second Amendment defenders in Virginia.
Here in Iowa, it seems like it's been 2020 for a long time already because of all the Democrat presidential candidates who have come to visit, for better or worse. And we're in 2020 now, finally. Talk about the importance of this election and how it pertains to the Second Amendment and to gun rights.
Boy, well, I'd say we were I'm going to tie it to the pro-life agenda as well, because if you lose a majority, it changed the entire debate. At the end of the last Congress, we were on the cusp of passing my heartbeat bill in the United States Congress. I think we could have gotten it done, and I just couldn't get leadership over the top to get that done. And then we had lost the majority. Now what was the debate turned into? Not about saving lives of innocent unborn anymore. It became the debate of, can we kill a baby after they're born? And that's a serious debate. And by the way, that argument was made by the governor of Virginia, Northam. And so look what happens when you lose a majority and how the debate changes and how the agenda changes. In this election, if you elect the wrong president, some of them have said, I'm going to come and take your guns. And I'll say I expect that's what they will try to do, especially if they hold the majority in the United States House of Representatives. But these people hate our guns, and they hate our free speech. They hate a lot of what's in the Bill of Rights because they want to take our freedoms away so that they can govern us from top down. I mean, when you have Bernie Sanders, what is he sitting second in Iowa right now, and he's got a 13-point lead in New Hampshire. I mean, he's possible could be the nominee, and he's an out-and-out socialist. And I'm not making that up. I went over one night when he was in the House of Representatives. They told me Bernie's a socialist, and I don't believe that. I'd never met one before that I knew of. And so maybe 1:30 in the morning, late votes, Bernie's sitting over there. So I go over and sit down next to him. Hey, I'm Steve King from Iowa. How you doing? Yeah, I'm Bernie Sanders from Vermont. We talked a while, and I got around to it, and I just said, they tell me that you're a socialist. Is that true? He said, yes, I'm a socialist. He came right out and said so. Now, what a percentage of college kids, something, not a majority yet, but too many of them, think that's all right. They forget that it takes people that will go to work every day and produce a good or a service that has a marketable value, either here or abroad, that has the energy and the desire and the return on that investment of their sweat equity, which means wages, to do this work. They think somehow money grows on trees, or you print that and then somehow you just assign that to people. That isn't what happens. You have to, not only you have to do that, but you have to have food, clothing, shelter, and then build your economy on the value adds on those components. They don't have any clue on that at all. It's just, we think this is better. There's always been utopianists on this planet. And it goes clear back into, well, Karl Marx. There's a monument for him in Berlin at a park, by the way. And I wouldn't want one of those in the United States of America, but those folks are trying to build one.
Talk a little bit about, you brought up the pro-life issue, so tell people how significant it is that President Trump just addressed the March for Life.
I don't know if I can overstate it. I don't have to worry about overstating it. But I look back at this, and I've spoken at that rally multiple times myself, and I know what that feels like to look down that mall and see hundreds of thousands of people that are there to march and to pray for the lives of the innocent unborn. It is a very, very moving experience. And I recall that we haven't had a president give a speech down there before in all of these years since 73 in Roe versus Wade. And George W. Bush had that shot at doing that, and as you could go back through the chain all the way back to 73, nobody went to that, no president, even though it was, 2 blocks away or something.
Yeah.
And so this president that, I guess I got to introduce him into Iowa January 24th of 2015, he was seen then as a non-ideological candidate. And I think there's some truth to that, and maybe even more than I realize. But Donald Trump is also one who absorbs the values of the rest of us. And when people came forward and said we need to protect innocent unborn human life, he understood. If he didn't understand it before then, he understood it as a candidate in Iowa. That became a plank in our platform, in his platform, and he went off to New Hampshire, South Carolina, and the presidency with those values and pledged to those values, and he lived up to it by going down to the mall and giving that terrific pro-life speech that he gave. And now he's set the standard for the next presidents of the United States, and one day we will see, this gives, I think, significant inertia to one day see Roe versus Wade overturned. And when we see the appointments to the Supreme Court that he has made, Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, we don't know exactly where they stand. I only ask that they be constitutionalists, because if you read the Constitution and abide by the Constitution, you're going to end up being pro-life. We don't know how many appointments are down the line. I am glad that Ruth Bader Ginsburg has recovered from cancer to the extent she is. We would never wish any ill will on anyone, whether we agreed with them or not. But the calendar turns, and there will be a time when there's other appointments to the Supreme Court. There always have been. It's possible that Donald Trump could get 1 or 2 more in the next term. If that happens, we're likely to see Gorsuch 2.0, Kavanaugh 2.0. That becomes a 7-2 court. And a 7-2 court hearing a heartbeat bill before it, I think, comes down on the side of the Constitution and the side of life. And that puts America in a great place again. We've seen over 61 million, it's actually closer to 62 million babies aborted since Roe versus Wade. And I hear people come to me every day and they say, I need labor, open the borders, bring me cheap foreign labor, who's going to do this work? Well, where are those 61.5 million babies, and where are the other roughly 60 million babies that would have been born except their mothers were aborted before they were born? This country is missing 100 million or so of the abortion generations, and it's a tragedy and it's a sin this nation is committing. And we're paying a price now, but we need to fix it with all that we can, and we're moving things in the right direction. Although we lost the majority in the House, that froze anything that was going to happen with Heartbeat in this Congress. Let's get that majority back. As Bob Henderson asked me, how long would it take you to introduce Heartbeat? Maybe 5 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. Another issue that came up was the national debt, and as you mentioned, people just don't talk about that as much for whatever reason anymore. But when you look at that debt clock, it's pretty tough to comprehend for anybody who's having kids or grandkids to imagine how they're going to get out of that.
I've made this argument with Paul Ryan when he was the budget chair, and then later on also, that I kept pressing, we have to bring a balanced budget, bring a balanced budget. Finally, he brought up a budget that balanced in 25 years. And I looked at the graph on that and how we got there. First, it has to take assumptions that we're going to have increased revenue tied off of increased GDP growth that may or may not be predictable. And then I said, but as this chart goes up like this and back down, that looks to me like the life cycle of the baby boomers. You've scheduled this thing out here so we get a balanced budget when the baby boomers are dead. And he looked at me stunned, and more or less, you didn't have to say that. It was a group meeting. And I said, but it's true. He goes, yeah, it is true because it's necessary, but we don't have to say it.
Yeah.
So I look at my sons. They're in their 40 or 41, 42 right now, and they haven't worked in a balanced budget since 2000, and I say it'd be 2002 probably, 2001 fiscal maybe. They'll reach retirement under Paul Ryan's schedule. They'll reach retirement never having worked in an economy in America with a balanced budget, and pass more and more of our debt off to my grandchildren and their future grandchildren. And it's immoral for us to do that. We're the richest country in the history of the world in a prosperous time in history, and we can't figure out how to balance our budget. That's a tragedy. We need to turn it up. So I was glad that he brought that up, and I'll keep bringing it up, Steve.
Anything else that you want to bring up for the voters of the 4th District or Iowans in general?
Well, because we had Lance Morgan here representing Winnebagos and Ho-Chunk, and because they are they were the hosts here and made this room available, and I'm glad that they did. I thank the Winnebagos for this room. I talked about the land transfer that needs to take place. That's 1,643 acres that was confiscated by the Corps of Engineers in about 1972. They never did anything with it. They just unlawfully took the land, and it violated the treaty that was signed right after the Civil War. So they went over a century with that land in their possession. Corps of Engineers confiscated it unlawfully, and the statute of limitations had expired before the Winnebagos had accumulated enough money to go to court. When they went to court, the court ruled that the statute of limitations had expired, but if they were able to decide on it, they would decide in favor of the Winnebagos, give them back their land. We ran all the traps on this from the county and the DNR and the recreational groups and whoever else was involved, and I will thank the Winnebagos for their cooperation in this. I have a bill in Congress, and it needs to get passed. And so we're going to meet again next month with, actually I spoke with Jennifer Lemire on the way up to this meeting, and she's coming out to Washington, and we'll have some others out. We're going to see if we can get that bill moved and give them back their land. What's true, right, and just needs to happen. Doesn't matter who you are. If we're going to restore the rule of law, we have to do the right thing according to the law. This is the right thing, and it takes an act of Congress.
All right, Congressman, thank you for joining us. Thank you for giving us some time here as you wrap this town hall meeting up. And best of luck to you as you continue the campaign and continue serving the state in Washington, D.C. Just stay clear of the swamp, I guess.
That's hard to do.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot, Jacob. I appreciate being with you today.
Thank you.
Thanks.